welcome to episode 2 of the Movie Guide podcast. I am Jordan.
I'm Greg.
Thank you for listening. This week we're going to begin our countdown to Halloween and talk about the classic horror films first.
Hooray!
We decided, well, by we I mean I decided and you said okay, that we were just going to exclude slasher films and talk about that next week. So this is just, I guess, supernatural kind of horror movies and things like that would be considered classics to most people. This week's episode is going to be a little shorter than last week's. We have less to talk about. Neither of us have seen The Martian or Sicario yet, so we don't have any thoughts to give on that, unfortunately. Probably see both sometime this weekend.
Yep. And then record on it either. Well, I guess next week.
We can talk about it a little next week, and I'll review both of them on the website, georgemovieguide.com. You can check that out later this weekend, beginning next week, and probably have the reviews for those movies up. It's also going to be shorter because I have to go to work. I have a real job. But if you would like to make sure I don't have to keep going to that job, you can donate to our cause on patreon.com/JMG. You can do $1 donations per post or whatever you want to do. But
We'll take 1,000.
Yeah, we will take 1,000. We'll take any amount of money that you'd be willing to give us. So now that I've plugged that, you can also find last week's episode on either SoundCloud or YouTube. We had a discussion about Everest, which is a very good movie. And we did top 5 summer movies, which led to some interesting discussions. So you can check that out on either SoundCloud or YouTube. All right, let's get started this week. Classic horror movies.
You want to talk about first?
Well, we can talk about the movie that we watched together a couple nights ago.
The Exorcist.
Yes, we did watch The Exorcist as homework.
Yeah, homework, can you imagine?
Yeah.
So let's talk about the main points. The movie about a girl who gets possessed.
By the way, this week's podcast will have spoilers, but I don't think that it's necessary to warn you because all of these movies are, pre-2000s, I guess we would have considered.
Well, I don't know. See, that's classic. When I think of classic horror movies, I think of 70s.
Yeah, well, we'll go 70s, 80s. I don't think we have anything to talk about, anything past the 80s, but still, these movies are at least 25 years old, so spoilers, obviously, for this.
So what do you think about Possession? What are your thoughts on it in terms of a device in a film?
In terms of a device in a film, good when The Exorcist was made, now very overused.
Yeah.
Very overused.
Big trope. The Omen is another. Is that the one with the little kid?
I've never actually seen that, but yes, it is.
I'm pretty sure I've seen The Omen. Yeah, the little black kid or black-haired kid named Damien or whatever.
Yeah, that's
again another possessed movie.
Is that a classic one? When did that come out?
No, but it's not. I'm just saying, it's a trope. It's it's another highlighted.
But
film,
I've heard that one's done pretty well, and I heard that's a pretty good. Yeah. I've never actually seen
horror movies are typically not my genre.
Not my genre either, especially nowadays. I mean, we'll get to a modern horror movie discussion in a couple weeks, but
that's not to say that I don't like to be scared, and I certainly love anything that involves a lot of suspense, which is perfectly natural for a horror film.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think Possession is, it dives deep into the religious side of things, and so you can, Catholicism is full of things that can be made creepy and scary if you want it to be.
It's been done well a lot of times. It's been done not so well much more times. And, I mean, The Exorcist was the beginning, really. I mean, there was movies that came, but this is the pinnacle of, in my opinion, horror movies in general. It's my favorite.
It certainly continues to last.
Yes. It's my favorite horror movie ever made for multiple reasons. I mean, we were watching it the other day, and you weren't exactly scared by most of it. Mm-hmm. You made the comment. Some of it still scares the crap out of me. I've seen it 5-6 times at least now, but some of it still gets to me.
I think I'm just straight up desensitized to such things, and being older does not make it easier to be scared. I think if you were under 16, 17 when you saw that movie, I think it'd be pretty frightening.
The problem with it now is people under 16 or 17 will just get bored with it because it's not the kind of horror movie that they.
Well, they're blowing people up on Call of Duty and
the
blood and guts.
Horror movies now are full of the jump scares and the exciting quote unquote things that happen, and that's what they're used to. So a movie like this is just slower build. It's more tension filled. It's more.
Well, they spent.
It's
You
more
made the
creepy than-
you made the comment like how I don't know if you're frustrated by it. It sounded like you were sure frustrated by it. The time it takes to get to any
It
real
does.
story.
That's my least favorite part of the movie. Is the whole first 20 minutes don't seem to really connect to anything. And I get what they're doing. They're trying to introduce the two priests in the movie, but they do it in such a weird way that it's hard for you to understand why we're doing this and how it connects to the actual story, the part that we actually care about, which is the little girl being possessed. I would have liked to have seen more of that and introduce the priests earlier in that story and just have it related more to the movie and not what they were doing, because it just didn't seem to fit real well.
Yeah.
It's not a huge problem with the movie, but it's probably the only one I have in reality.
Okay.
Personally, though, I find it horrifying and creepy and graphic at times.
What do you like most then?
In terms of the scariest parts, or well,
like when you said that it still scares you, like what specifically freaks you out? Because there's the only 2 or 3 things that I kind of felt were really creepy. When she comes to for me this is the best moment in the entire film, when she comes down the stairs and you hear it before you see it.
That's probably the scariest part of the movie. Is
that sound?
Like,
Oh my god!
What is that noise? And it turns around the camera. Girl's crawling backwards down the stairs, and she gets to the bottom, and just blood's coming out of her mouth, and that's terrifying to me.
Yeah,
and
that was that moment, and then the other one. There's one of these 2 or 3 times in the movie you'll see a flash of a demon that's supposed. I've heard people talk about later. This is supposedly the face of the demon that's possessing her. But there's a moment. There's 2 where it's full makeup and you see it dead on.
Yeah.
And then the other one that really really got me is it's kind of a black and white or transparent image that's superimposed over the hood of the stove when the mom's walking in the house.
Which I didn't even see. You pointed it out, but by the
it
time
caught my eye instead because it was fast, it was fleeting, and it was frightening. And it was not. I think it was done. It was a little more slow. If you've seen Fight Club, you'll see there's several times in there where the shots of different people are cut in a single frame style, and they come and go so fast. These were a little slower. These are almost 2 or 3 frames, but. Yeah, it was creepy.
Yeah,
creepy
I mean, just the overall sense of dread throughout the movie, I think, and some of the things that are said by the girl who's possessed, and it's just all creepy and disturbing to me. Like, I made the comment, I went and got another beer or something, we were watching it, and walked into my room and came back out and was like, it already freaks me out to walk into my room in the dark.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, that kind of thing gets to me. So, but not only is it scary to me, which makes it a great horror film, but just the way it's executed for the most part, other than what we just talked about, is phenomenal, and that's what makes it the greatest horror movie of all time. While it might not be as scary to some people as other films, just the way it's executed is far above most of those films.
Okay.
So that's why, to me, it's the best horror movie of all time. I actually made a top 10 horror movies list on my website, and it was number 1 by far, probably.
Another point of interest for me was the conversation. The first time, what's the priest's name? The other one, the younger guy. Carrick or something like that. When he first talks to the demon for any length of time, there's this interesting back and forth, and what I liked about that is that the dialogue for the demon had this kind of sense of being older, like you could feel the age of the other person. You weren't talking. This wasn't a little girl in a psychotic episode. This was thing that had been around for a long time. There was this kind of ancient feel to it, and I really liked that conversation.
Yeah, it's all of it's very well done, and the makeup is incredible, and just great movie overall. And
what do you think about the way they exorcise it, the way they get rid of the demon?
I mean, I've never seen an exorcism in person, believe it or not, so I don't know what it would
actually no, I mean to say in the film, so they drive it out ultimately by chanting scripture at it over and over again.
Yeah.
And then finally, it seems to either the... I'm not sure on how this is supposed to go. Does the priest sort of take in the spirit when he dives out the window at the end?
I think he challenges the spirit, and it decides to take over him. And as soon as he feels that, there's a moment where he's
himself briefly.
Well, right before that, you can see his face change, and it's more demonic. And then right before he jumps out the window, you can kind of see it change back to normal. So I think that he felt it, and he gathers himself, and he knows the only way to get rid of it is to kill himself. So he jumps out the window. which I think is a great ending to the movie. I didn't
Was
see
that the
it
scene
coming
where
the first time.
Is that the scene where we were talking about how impressive the change back and forth from makeup into makeup and out of makeup for that shot?
I have no idea how in what,
because it's
73
seamless.
or whatever that movie came out.
Would, that's the kind of change that you would expect to see given the aid of
now.
CG, and you don't have that, and you've still got to cut that shot really well. I mean, I was really impressed. I don't know if they overlaid it or how they did it.
I have no idea
because you don't see you can't see behind the curtain there. I can't really tell how it was done.
But
I wonder. I'd like to talk to someone who knows like what was written about that scene and figure out like what the motivation.
Yeah, if anybody actually remembers, since the movie came out 40 years ago.
But yeah, just diving out the window like that, he took it with him. I don't know. Anyway, and then of course the little girl's fine afterwards.
Yeah, great ending to a great movie. So my second favorite horror movie of all time, and it's much different, in my opinion, in terms of it's more of a psychological kind of movie, and that'd be The Shining with Jack Nicholson.
It's been a while since I've seen that movie.
Been a while?
Yeah.
I would highly.
In fact, I may have only seen it once.
I would highly recommend seeing it again.
So that I watched that when I was doing my own version of a movie marathon with my brother, and we watched at least one scary movie a day for all of October, and I think this was 2009, and that was a trip. But The Shining was top of our list.
Yeah,
because I've heard all about it my whole life.
What I like about The Shining is it feels so realistic in that this could actually happen to a person. How they just slowly fall into a madness, and just the way that it's executed. Nicholson's acting, everything he's in, he's always top of his game, but this one in particular, you just feel it through his character.
I've seen very few movies where he isn't playing a psychotic guy. Like he does insane really well.
He does insane really well. I
and
wonder if that says something about him.
Yeah, I wonder. Even when you see him in sort of a normal state, like at the beginning of that movie, he's supposed to be this kind of average dad, good guy. He comes off as creepy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and his kind of frail Walking Dead wife doesn't really help that either.
She was my least favorite part of the movie. I don't like that actress. I don't know.
I don't like that portrayal. I mean, she seems simpering and she's always wailing. And,
it takes me out a little bit, but it's a very small complaint in the reality of the movie because I'm too busy watching Nicholson. And the kid is great too. The kid that plays his son in the movie,
the creepy little finger puppet guy.
The red rum and all of that is writing murder, but seeing it backwards. It's creepy, and I think the creepiest part of the whole movie is when those twin girls show up.
Come play with us, Daniel. Yeah. Come play with us.
What is that? And
do you know any of the story behind the hotel? Because that's a real hotel in the mountains of Colorado.
I'm sure I've read some of it at times, but no, I don't really remember anything particular.
Supposedly, it has. I don't know if it has any hauntings behind it, but the maze that's there is a real maze. And there's some story about it. I'm going to mix this up. I want to say that either Stephen King or Jack Nicholson went and messed around in the maze a lot to kind of get this feel of what it would be like to be lost. Mm-hmm. But because that maze becomes really important in the end.
Oh yeah,
obviously, that's where Danny goes to get safe, and then of course his dad there freezing.
Follow him with an axe.
It's messed up.
Yeah, it's messed up.
Well, what do you think of the elevator with the blood?
That's terrifying to me.
I can't watch
for
that
a whole
now.
month after watching that movie. Every time I went to an elevator, I just assumed blood was going to come flying out of it. And
I wonder how they accomplished that scene. Did they drill a hole in the top of an elevator and fill it up with blood? Is it a model, like a mock-up?
I'd imagine it's probably some sort of model, but I don't know the answer to that. It'd be interesting to find out. But like I said, the realism of the movie and how you're on this journey with Nicholson's character into the point where you almost feel like you're delving into the madness with him the whole time. Because the movie focuses on him. It's following him, and his wife and child have their scenes, but the movie is mainly focused on him and this descent that he goes into while being alone, and whether to me it's not real clear whether he's like taken over by spirits or if it's just all in its head. And that's what I like about the movie. You don't know whether this is just him that's going crazy or if there's actually something supernatural going on.
I don't know either.
But that's what I like about the movie.
Well, you have that scene in the I guess it's the ballroom at the end, where he's at the bar and all that sort of thing, and all the people around him. And the other thing I like about this film is that it's so iconic that it's everywhere in pop culture today.
Oh, yeah.
You still see it all the time.
Here's Johnny. I mean, you see it.
South Park did an episode. Bob's Burgers even did an episode.
The top
It's
10
everywhere.
most iconic movie quotes ever in any list ever made is "Here's Johnny" comes from this movie. So yeah, it's everywhere.
Yep.
All right.
What's next?
Next, I have Poltergeist written down. Have you seen that one?
The newer one or the older one?
The older one.
Okay, the
'Cause
older one
new
is an atrocity.
Oh, it's
It's
terrible.
awful.
It's really bad. It's a disgrace to the original.
They took it and turned it into a modern jump scare. I am a big fan of the first Poltergeist movie, primarily because the way that they sell you on the scary stuff is they normalize it a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
There's in the early beginnings, there's the whole thing with the moms charted out the path that things are getting moved across the floor on, and like she sits her kid on it and slides him across the floor.
It's almost a lot of fun at the beginning, and then it's like the spirits or whatever just having fun with the people.
Escalates,
and then it escalates very quickly.
You feel like you don't feel like it's random. Like, oh my gosh, it's incredibly bad at the beginning, and then it goes down and back up and back down. No, it's slow, it's paced. It does seem like there's a purpose to it, and I like the dialogue. I like the reactions of people seem very genuine. Particularly the parents. I like that there's a lot of the dialogue is good. Like it's enjoyable to listen to what people have to say.
It's just an enjoyable movie to watch, and I don't know whether it's because planning on this podcast and we had talked about it a little bit. I had a dream about Poltergeist last night.
Oh, do tell!
And it was one of the most terrifying dreams I've ever had because
I don't know that I've ever had a dream like I would qualify as terrifying.
My dream decided to combine it and Poltergeist. So every scene with the clown doll in Poltergeist was replaced with the actual clown from It, and it merged those two together. So I was like in my dream playing the movie in my head, and every time there was a scene with the clown, it was the clown from It alive, and it's terrifying.
Wow.
I don't know whether my mind was in that zone from just thinking about this podcast today or what, but
I don't know what to say about that. That's I would be frightened as well. I didn't like the movie yet because it freaked me out too much.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of clowns. So.
Yeah,
but
so other things of Poltergeist that were really great. The animation for the few really demony things that you see is fantastic. It is a little crab skull thing with the hair flying everywhere.
It is a little dated. The effects.
But it comes off in a way that, for me, like you're not one of the things that I think really dates a film is when you ever have to take a thing that you've created for the film, CG style, or in this case, puppets or whatever special effect you're doing, and you merge that with a scene with actual people in it.
Right.
Like it just breaks down so fast.
It does.
It ages quickly. Whereas these scenes, kind of the scary stuff stands alone, or the thing that you're filming that's not real stands alone from the real things, and so you kind of it gives it, I think, a little more longevity.
That's true. I just think it was funny because I had seen this movie when I was younger, but I really watched it again for the first time a little over a year ago, probably now. And I said, watching the movie, man, if they could remake this with better special effects, man, it would be perfect. Like 3 days later, I looked it up, and they were actually remaking it, which came out this summer, I guess. And I regret saying that because that remake is bad.
Yeah,
it's really
I think
bad.
The trouble is that you need to bring in the same writers and the same directors if you could have.
That's true. That would have helped because, I mean, there were a couple decent aspects of the remake, but most of it was, I mean, bad is an understatement. So. It completely destroys the name of the original. And I've never actually seen any of the sequels. Have you seen the sequels to any of the...
No, I did not know there were sequels.
Yeah, there's a couple sequels.
I think I've seen them.
I think 3.
Jeez. What do you think of the trope of the Indian burial ground? Or in this case, a burial ground at all? Because I guess it's not specifically Indians in this case.
didn't really know that it was a trip because I don't...
Oh, you
really feel like I've seen it in
the other one is like
this.
Pet Cemetery.
I've never seen Pet Cemetery.
Okay.
I've heard I need to watch it, but something
Pet
I've
Cemetery is it's Stephen King. I think it's worth a watch. It's not. I don't think it's one of his better books. I think things like what's the one with the car?
Christine.
Is Christine the name of the car?
I think so. I've always
He's got some other ones. There's from Rose Red. Is that him? No. What's the one with the? There's a haunted mansion that there's a graph. Emily, maybe, I don't even know. He's got better movies. Even Children of the Corn, I think, is better than this one.
I like Children of the Corn, actually. I think it's a very creepy movie.
Yeah, they got some.
Anything with children doing stuff creeps me out.
Yeah, that's true. You're not a big fan of kids, are you?
I mean, that's not kids. It's just kids. Kids whispering might be the creepiest thing ever.
You're gonna be married one day. Your kid's gonna come in and just, Daddy, and you're gonna lose your crap.
I'll lose it because kids whispering is the creepiest thing you could ever hear. Like if you whispered something right now, no matter what it was, you could whisper the creepiest thing ever right now. If you had a kid come whisper the nicest thing ever, the kid whispering would be creepier than you whispering. I don't know what it is.
So they're here probably really got you
yeah.
in that movie.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's I like that. The they're here. The idea of the television being able to be tuned. That was interesting.
It was the whole television as like the gateway into the other world, I guess.
Have we seen that very often? I guess Ghostbusters combined technology with the
in a much different way, yeah, but
kind of fourth dimensional.
Let's see. Is there anything else that does that?
I can't think of anything. Oh, actually, I can't. Signs. They tune into the alien chatter.
Yeah.
It's not ghosts. It's not supernatural.
It's not ghosts.
But they use technology to find the, as they say in the movie business, the MacGuffin.
Independence Day does it. The aliens use the satellites to communicate across the world.
So it's pretty common.
Yeah, but
I liked it. It felt different to use because the static on the TV is everything, and we don't experience this now. But at the time, like TV networks would go off at night.
Yeah.
And so you get that static for a couple hours every night.
Just that very opening scene where you first...
The dog and...
Well, not the opening of it, but when you first see the girl and the TV together, and it's just...
Her hand up on the screen.
It's just... It comes around the corner, and you're like, what is she doing? And it's like, you kind of hear her whispering with the TV. I think it's either the mom or the dad that's like watching her
talking to it?
Yeah. And... just like kind of that reveal is really creepy and eerie, and just a little music. It's just kind of a little bit of music in the background.
You've reminded me of the scene in Close Encounters of the Third Kind.
Yes.
Where the little boy is talking to the aliens, but you don't see the aliens. You only see his reactions, and that's a good time there. I like those scenes because you think of the innocence of a child, and so you feel disarmed, and yet there's this other greater, scarier thing going on.
Yeah, and. I mean, kids are another thing that's overused in horror movies now, but apparently that's realistic, quote unquote, because
what do you mean?
Supposedly, I mean, I don't believe in ghosts.
We talked about in the mythology.
We talked about this, but if you do believe in ghosts, it is said that kids see them more than adults would, for whatever reason. That's what I've heard. So maybe having kids in horror movies when ghosts are around is just. That's the way it is. But I mean, we talked about the other day, I'm one of those people that I don't really believe in ghosts because I've never seen one, but if I saw one or heard one, I'd believe real quick. Cause
so you've never had a creepy experience?
No.
I'm pretty sure I talked to an evil spirit once.
Solid explain.
So, background of the story is I was living in Canada. I was a missionary for my church for a couple of years. And I was in an apartment building there's three other missionaries, so me and plus them is 4. There were 2 other guys that lived on the other side of the city, and they often would go around and tour and see the missionaries. We're in the northern part of Canada, so the cities are far apart, and so they would drive around and visit these other sets of missionaries and make sure they had all the things they need and all that sort of thing. Well, one night they're leaving out and to go. They were going to drive late up to the city called North Bay. We were living in a city called Sudbury. They leave, and I talk to them around 9 o'clock and say, yeah, we're just going to go ahead and drive through the night. Cool. So we go to bed. In the middle of the night, we're in an apartment building, and our buzzer rings. I don't know if you've been in an apartment building where you can buzz someone into the front lobby.
I've never been in one, but I know.
I'm sure you've seen that. So the way things are set up, no one ever is going to visit us except other missionaries. So I run over the buzzer, and assuming that it's them, I hit the intercom button to speak, and I said, hey guys, because I think it's them. And I hit the button to listen, and all I hear is "Let me in the voice of one of the other missionaries. His last name was Ramashka, so he's a Russian guy. Mm-hmm. He has a very distinct accent, and I hear this "Let me in," completely comfortably, not feeling weird at all. I buzz him in. I wait for a second. I check the intercom. Hello, anybody there? Nothing there. So I figured like they've gotten through. Mm-hmm. So then I go back to bed because I know that they know that our door is never locked, so they can just come in.
Yeah.
While it goes by, nothing happens, and then I hear this on the door. I'm thinking, these jerks, they know the door's unlocked, but they're going to make me come up. So I go up and open the door, nobody's there. I look down the hallway, and the elevator isn't making any, the elevator hasn't opened and closed. And
right.
I think, these guys are playing a joke on me.
Right.
So I push open this, we're right next to the stairwell, so I push open the door for the stairwell, listening for footsteps, nothing. I think I'm going to catch him, so I run over to the balcony, I look out of the balcony, and there's fresh fallen snow, because we're in the northern part of Canada in the middle of winter. No footprints at the door, no new tire tracks in the parking lot. It is fresh fallen snow and nothing's there. I don't think anything of it when I go to bed, but the next day I was running through that in my head and I thought, that is creepy. Something said verbally, and of course when you listen to the stories about ghosts and crap like that, you always hear that there's, at least sometimes you'll hear that they ask you permission. Right? They have to ask you permission. Why do they have to? I don't know, but they do. So I got let me in. I let it in. It knocked on my door and then I did it again. That was creepy. That was really creepy. When I think back on that and I think about it, I can hear the voice still in my head. It's weird, man.
A skeptic
it's
as
weird.
I am, are you sure you just didn't dream that?
No, I don't.
So it was all at night?
No, because the guys remembered hearing me get up in the middle of the night. Because we all slept, the apartment was arranged, we all slept in the same room, different beds.
That's interesting.
Yeah, so it's spooky, right? And I called the guys the next morning and said, hey, you guys didn't stay overnight or something? No, they'd driven all the way up, just like they'd planned. So that was spooky, and I don't have any more details on that. Those are the facts, and it creeped me out, man. It still creeps me out.
I think you dreamed it.
For real?
Yeah, I think you dreamed it.
Okay.
I
didn't, but you're free to think that.
I think that you might have gotten up thinking that you had heard that, but really you had heard it in a dream, because I do that.
Here in our apartment?
I'll think that I'll dream that I get...
That's a lot of elaborate stuff to have simply dreamed though.
That's true, but
Very
I'm a
specific.
skeptic. I'm a skeptic, so...
Okay.
I mean,
you said you'd know it if you said that you would
Oh, if
believe
something happened to me, if that happened to me tonight...
So that's what I'm saying.
I'd probably jump off the balcony. I mean, yeah.
Well, in our balcony, that wouldn't be a dangerous jump.
Yeah, I'd climb up to the third floor and do it.
But for me, that it's I don't say it was anything, but if you're going to talk about it in the context of scary stuff, then yeah, I mean it was pretty creepy.
All right, well, we should make a movie about that.
No, I don't want to relive that, man.
I'll get a screenwriter credit.
Oh, well, there we go.
We'll just send it to Steven Spielberg or something.
Mm-hmm. You heard it here first, folks.
Yeah, don't steal our story. So getting back to our actual topic here, we got a little off course, but I guess still scary movie related. The next one I have written down is the Amityville Horror, which you've never seen.
Well, I've seen the remake.
You've seen the remake. What do you think of the remake?
I liked the remake. It follows. I like some of the remake. Let me rephrase. It follows the trope of somebody in the house getting, taken over by a demon or influenced by some, supernatural force, and that's the dad. And he basically goes crazier and crazier throughout the movie and puts his family through a lot of nonsense. Some of the parts of that movie there are so much fun to watch. And again, I'll give you a specific sequence. There's a scene in the remake when the young son of the family, he's a little kid, maybe 5, 6, 7, 8, somewhere in there. He's got to pee in the middle of the night. This is so perfect setup for your classic jump scare. My brother and I are watching this. And we decided to record ourselves at the time because we thought we were going to put it on YouTube or something, which never happened. But we record ourselves while we're watching this. All you can see in the night, because the movie's on and it's dark, and so you can just see the reflection of the screen in our glasses, and that's it. But we're watching this. Little kid goes up, runs to the bathroom. The whole time we're muttering to ourselves, don't go to the bathroom, kid. Fucking, what's your pants? I don't know, but don't go to the bathroom. Yeah. He runs out. He goes. He takes a piss, right, and then he goes to wash his hands. And both my brother and I go wash your hands! We screamed it out loud when we saw that movie.
But they never listen when you scream.
Of course not. They don't listen to me because they're on the TV screen. So anyway, he goes, he washes his hand, he looks up, he sees the creepy thing and whatever. But I love that. That moment was so much fun to experience. That movie goes on for me as something I enjoyed.
It's a better horror remake than most horror remakes, I would say. I like but don't love the original. I think it's a good movie, but it's not great. It's very dated.
You've not seen the remake, or have you?
I have seen the remake.
How do they compare?
Are
there a lot of differences?
They're actually pretty similar. I mean, there's obviously differences. I mean, but they are fairly similar from what I remember. I've only seen the remake once, and that was a while back. I've seen the original a handful of times. But it's another one of those kind of shining psychological kind of things where, like you said, in the remake, the dad is taken over. It's the same in the original, except this is more definitely supernatural.
Well, and the whole thing about the story is it's based on a true story.
Yeah,
apparently,
true story, quote unquote.
Well, okay, true happenings. Whether or not you believe that the creepy stuff happened, there are events that are recorded in court documents for these families, or whatever. I say court documents, whatever. There's a record of the various highlights happening.
Oh, that's fair enough. But yeah.
Well, okay,
quote unquote true story.
This is important. This is an important distinction to make when talking about stuff like this. It's like saying, do UFOs exist?
Okay. No.
Unidentified flying objects? Yeah.
Well,
I bet
yeah,
you there's a lot of unidentified flying objects.
Yeah.
Does that mean it's aliens? No. So that's what I'm saying.
That's fair enough. Okay.
You want to say, do people report creepy things happening all the time? Yes, they do. So that's what I'm saying.
I see your point.
Based on true events.
Simmer down. I see your point.
I think it's a good point to make.
It is. Did you have a point going along with that? I forgot what you were trying to say.
Oh, I was commenting on the fact that the events recorded are historical. So when you said, is the story the same? I was saying, it probably should be the same because the events that the story is based on wouldn't change.
Are any of these other ones based on true?
Well, I feel like The Shining is, but I don't know. Not everything in The Shining. I feel like the kernel of truth in The Shining is that there's supposedly haunted things going on in the hotel.
The Exorcist we were talking about the other day is based on a true story.
Yeah, it does. It says that right at the beginning of the movie.
Yeah, and I looked it up while we were watching it. I was kind of researching something.
But of course, the Blair Witch Project purports to be based on true events, doesn't it?
I don't think it actually...
I thought at the beginning of the movie it had a little tagline saying... Or maybe that was...
I think that's part of the trope of the movie. I think it's part of the trope of the movie that they actually found the tapes. Speaking of finding tapes, found footage movies have got to go. I'm so tired of them.
Yeah.
I watched The Visit the other day.
Is that a found footage movie?
It's a found footage movie, and it doesn't need to be. And I can't stand them anymore. That started with the Blair Witch Project, maybe even a little bit further back.
I like the Blair Witch Project.
I do like the Blair Witch Project, so I like that a lot. And I
saw it long after the found footage movie was a thing. I think that the best way to do a found footage movie now, because there's been so many, there's a glut. You combine the found footage pieces with normal footage. And I know what you're going to say about this, but they sort of do this in the latest run of scary movies that are all filmed on cameras. The Paranormal Activity movies. They mix a little bit of standard filmmaking with now it's all in the story. It's all filmed on cameras, but they set up shots as if they would have been set up with regular cameras. So anyway, but that's why you're not running around with shaky cameras all the time. Which is, I think, just the worst way to make a movie. That Cloverfield gets away with it only because it's such a big...
I like Cloverfield a lot.
Yeah, but it's a big budget movie. It's got a lot of good stuff in it. Got some good actors in it. But it gets away with it because of that. Otherwise, I'm just so
tired of it now. It's like every movie that comes out, it's like...
Imagine if the Blair Witch Project... Well, the Blair Witch Project does really well. But take another scary movie that's like that and add in a couple normal shots periodically throughout the movie, and you kind of you have some ground to stand on as you go from scene to scene.
It's nauseating to watch sometimes in some movies too, which is another reason I don't like it. But that's besides the point. We're way off topic here. But the Amityville Horror original I'd recommend watching it.
Walk me through the plot of that movie.
I mean, it's been a while since I've seen it, so I mean the dad is possessed or whatever.
Do we know what happened in the house before everybody moves in? Or is it another one of these?
Maybe that's something that we watch at some point together. But
okay, because a lot of these movies is somebody killed somebody in a house.
Yeah,
and then that's when the audience enters the story. Is after that. Mm-hmm. I don't know. How do you feel about the trope of the murder of somebody starts the problem in a house? Why does it have to be murder?
I don't know. I mean,
is it because it's
I said, this is not my favorite genre for this reason. There's so many things
it's fun to
discuss. Overused.
Because I feel like it's the violence of the act, the sort of horror of it all, creates the scary scenes afterward.
I don't know. because I mean, what else could it be though? I mean, there was nothing else that either you're going to have something not happen in the house at all, or it's going to be a murder because anything in between.
There's
nobody dies and there's no spirits in the house. I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Well, okay, so whether or not someone dies naturally or violently, though, I think maybe the cutting off point. Don't laugh at me for this. The movie Casper, the early '90s movie Casper's. There's some eerie, despite the fact that it's a kids movie. There's some eerie moments in that movie. They're not scary so much as they're just kind of eerie, and that's what I think you could do a lot more of in the world of horror. Is have something that is kind of creepy on its face, but doesn't have to be super scary. Well, Mothman Prophecies is a good movie.
Oh, Mothman Prophecies is great.
Nobody outright is killed, which starts the whole story.
That's true.
Well, you could say his wife dies, but she wasn't murdered by someone and then someone moves in the house. Like, it wasn't the typical trope. That again that's another movie based on true events.
Yeah, I haven't
some
seen
serious true events. The major thing in that movie where the bridge collapses, that really happened.
Yeah, I haven't seen it in a while, but I do remember really liking that movie. And it's a really creepy movie.
One of my favorites.
I remember watching it with my dad, and I was like, "Oh, what kind of?" I had never heard anything about it. I was like, "Oh, what kind of movie is this? It's just like a crime kind of movie." It's like
crime. No, that's the least.
I'm like
part of that movie.
The box looks kind of creepy. It's like a scary movie. He's like, "No, it's not scary at all." Okay, that movie's a little scary at times. I mean,
yeah, it's meant to. It's a suspense thriller.
I don't know.
I loved how they center around the husband, Richard Gere's character, which I'm blanking on his name, and John Klein. I've watched that movie so many times. I
would have never gotten that, and I'm usually the walking IMDb every day.
So wonderful, and there's so many. So I could go on and on. This is one my brother and I should go back and forth on because we watch this movie every time there's a Friday the 13th. We pop in a scary movie, and it's very often Mothman Prophecies. But the central theme of that movie is this guy whose wife dies, and he's looking for something to fill the hole, and he just can't, and he's over and over again running into this emotional barrier, and it's not really doing his life any good. And then he runs into this, and I wonder if the story is meant to say that his grief kind of drove him to the point where he notices these creatures called the Mothman. And in the story they tell you that the Mothman are sort of like, they're higher beings in the sense that they're not necessarily smarter than we are, but they're in a position to observe more than we are. So, for example, the example they give in the story is a guy washing windows up on the side of a building. He can look down the road further than you can, simply because of his position. Does that make him better or smarter than you? No. His position is different. So you could talk about the fourth dimension or whatever, some other way that these creatures can be more knowledgeable, because they can seem to move in and out of time and space.
We should watch that one at some point.
I could go on and on. Yeah. It's fantastic. It's fantastic. That's one of the few horror movies that I can talk on with any real authority.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen a lot of horror movies and a bunch that I probably should watch, but it's not my favorite genre, but there are some really good films.
So your favorite then is The Exorcist?
That is my favorite horror movie, yes. Especially if we're talking just a really good film, not necessarily a really good horror movie, but a really good film overall, then yes, The Exorcist.
Do you have any runner-ups?
The Shining. All the ones that we've talked about are definitely on my list of the best. And there's been, I mean, I give recent horror movies a hard time, but there's been some really good ones that have come out in the last 10 years or so that we'll talk about in a later podcast.
Okay, we shouldn't get too far ahead. Because I've got several others on my mind right now I want to bring up, but maybe we'll hold off.
We'll hold off because I know you haven't seen a lot of recent horror movies, so we'll have
ones I have seen, I've seen over and over again.
Yeah, so we'll have to watch several. There's a couple of them that I've talked to you about that you haven't seen that you really need to see before we talk. So we'll have to watch those because those are actually really good. In my opinion, they're really good and well done. The Conjuring.
We'll tease those at the end. Maybe I'll watch them this week before next time.
Yeah, well, we should watch them together. I have one written down here that I want to ask you if you would consider it a horror movie, and that's Alien.
Ooh, it is your class. I guess I've noticed this distinction that you've made, which I would not have made. A slasher film, which is kind of the idea of like you've got a cast of characters and one by one they die until the end and someone survives.
That's what I would consider.
Okay.
Things
I feel like
slasher
movies fall under the larger category of horror. Would you say?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, well then yeah, it's I'd say it's a horror movie. Sure.
Yeah, I think it is.
The fact that it's set in a sci-fi setting, I think, is ancillary. As the Alien series progressed, it became much more of a sci-fi series.
It did. It was. The second Aliens is really more of an action movie than anything, at least from my standpoint. It's for that reason.
Well, and when you look at Prometheus, which followed it.
I didn't like that.
It was, but it shifted the gears till it was sci-fi.
Very sci-fi.
Very sci-fi. But they still managed, in my opinion, to hold on to the horror because they did some other scary things in that film that were much. They were a little different before, so they dealt a whole lot with like the origins of the human race, which the earlier Alien movies only really hinted at.
Yeah, but
and the whole problem of like what is and isn't alive, and what is and isn't a person when they talk about the android creatures that are there.
Well, Alien, I think, just has that creepy undertone the whole time. You never know when things are going to happen and when the alien's going to pop out and kill somebody. Well, you could say that for anything, but it just
they set it up so that you when something is going to happen and you know it's going to happen, like that was almost as intentional for you to know. So it's like, oh, he's going to get it now.
But it's
the audience
still
has
scary,
fun with it.
But it's still scary. So that's why I think, in my opinion, it's a horror movie. Anything that scares you is a horror movie, really. But in most cases, there's another one that's talked about a lot that I personally don't consider a horror movie, but I can see where people think that, and that's Jaws. When I was researching movies to talk about, that was a common one that came up on list for best horror movies.
I don't consider that horror.
I wouldn't either.
Because you know what the bad guy is, and the bad guy. So I mean, the what a horror movie really does well, or what it exemplifies, is the unknown scary thing. So even in a movie like I watched Scream today, that movie. You know who the bad guy is. It's the guy in the mask.
Yeah.
But but because he's wearing a mask, you don't know his identity, and that's what obscures it. Whereas with the shark, you know the whole time it's a shark.
That's my problem, and we're going back to modern horror movies here a little bit, but is they always really reveal at the end or in the middle what the bad thing is, and usually when that happens, the movie is a lot less scary.
Yes.
So
you have to rely on the larger.
I like
some
movies
other element
where you use your imagination on what the bad. Because to me, that's the scariest part. Is because your imagination can take it so much farther. So if you never find out what exactly is going on, to me, that's a whole lot scarier than them showing you halfway through. You're like, all right, it's this demon that now that I've seen it and it's a CGI mess, it's just not as scary anymore.
Mothman Prophecies does that really well. They obscure what the danger is in sort of blurry lights and all these other things.
You really like that movie, don't you?
I do.
Everything goes back to Mothman Prophecies.
Well, it just because it exemplifies, like every time that there's something, I'm like, oh, well, Mothman Prophecies is a sort of. I'll try not to be a shield for that movie. But the other things, the other elements of Jaws that make it a compelling film are the relationships.
Yeah.
They're the sort of director choices, the tension between the police chief and the town, and that scene with the iconic scene where the mom slaps him, and berates him for her kid dying. That woman delivered an incredibly powerful scene, in my opinion. Guess what she did? Nothing else after that. That was her one. As far as I understand, that was her one movie. Yeah. Whoa! So that movie is full of just knockout performances.
And I think, God, who is the character? The guy that gives the speech on the USS Indianapolis.
Clint is his character's name. I don't know the actor's name.
It's as far as I remember, it's mostly one take, if not all one take.
The Indiana.
Yeah, and it's just, that's a great scene right there. That's flawless acting almost at that point, where you can just do a whole monologue from memorization and just deliver it like that. That's one of my favorite scenes in the movie, and that has nothing to do with the shark.
One of my favorite lines in all of moviedom is in that movie, and it's not even related to the shark. It's when the wife is talking to her husband, Rob. What's his Rob? It's not Schneider. That's the other. That's the animal guy, isn't it? Whatever. The guy, the police chief. The wife's talking to him, and she says something like, "You want to get drunk and fool around?" I love that. That's one of my favorite lines in any movie, because it interrupts the sort of despair that they're feeling about like the shark and all this stuff, and it's a nice line. It's almost as good as the line in Empire Strikes Back, where Han is talking to Leia and she goes, "I love you," and he says, "I know." That. That's a classic line, and this line in Jaws is not classic, but it's.
I don't even remember that line.
It doesn't come up. No, nobody ever talks about it. I talk about it because it's a funny line, and it's really memorable, at least for me.
Yeah, it's the best part of Shark Week every year. Is
do you involve yourself in Shark Week?
Not really. No.
Never watched it.
But there's always
it feels very gimmicky to me.
There's always somebody showing the movie Jaws, and I watch it every year when it's on like that.
Jaws, it's a great
movie, but I don't know that I consider it horror.
No,
like
but
some people do.
Despite the fact that I wouldn't consider horror, I'd consider maybe action suspense, or drama suspense. But there's a lot of jump scares in that movie. There's
there are
the scene where the head floats out of the water.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, that was terrifying me when I was a kid seeing the movie.
The shark coming up out of the water when we need a bigger boat moment.
Are there any other classics that you would bring up that maybe something I haven't seen? Or
Well, so I consider this a classic, but only because it was a huge part of my childhood.
Oh, well, here we go.
Here we
go.
Ernest Scared Stupid. I love that movie.
Talked about that movie.
We're gonna watch that sometime.
Stupid.
You're gonna love it. It's when you watch it, picture yourself, because it's aimed at young teenagers or children. Picture yourself as a 12-year-old watching this movie, and it's great. It's really good.
Okay, we'll watch it sometime.
Yeah,
we'll watch it.
It's one of my favorites.
Any other ones? You said Pet Sematary earlier.
Pet Sematary is a good one. I like The Messengers a lot.
What's that one about? I don't know.
That is, I forget, the Kristen Stewart. Is that the Twilight chick?
Yeah.
This was before she did Twilight. This was before everybody decided that she was a terrible actress.
She is a terrible
but
actress.
She does this movie okay. But the story in this film is that the family moves into a new house and scary stuff happened in the house beforehand. It's your classic setup. But what this movie has that others don't is, despite what you may think about Kristen Stewart, I think she's really good in this film. I think she puts on a good lead, and the story of the family itself is really strong. It's really powerful, and the reason why it matters at all is that their family life parallels the previous family that lived in the house, and then it all went sour for the previous family, but for them it doesn't.
Gotcha.
And it's not very long, if I recall. It's kind of right at.
That's the best thing for a horror movie is it can't drag on too long.
It needs to be tight. And if I recall, and I may be wrong, the audience can check it out. Because Google's a thing, but I'm fairly.
Google's a thing for us too, but we're lazy.
Yeah, well, we're recording a thing. I'm not going to Google it. That'd be annoying. So, I remember it being right at an hour 90 or an hour and 30 minutes. But yeah, it's just the music's fun and creepy. There's a couple things in there. She's got a baby brother, and the baby brother can see creepy stuff happening, and the adults can't. And that's a fun thing to watch because he's sort of the canary in the coal mine for all the bad stuff happening.
Well, the music in any horror movie is really sometimes the scariest part. Like we've discussed before, I heard somebody say it, and it's completely accurate. It's if you're watching a horror movie and you're scared, close your ears, not your eyes.
Yeah.
Because it's the sounds and it's the music and it's just the sudden changes is what ends up being really scary. So
the images are often much less scary.
I've always found that an interesting quote, and I think it's completely true.
The music for this is the distinction for me. I like eerie music much better than scary music. Scary music is there's the tension builds and the music comes up and then boom, something happens. That's scary music, or what accompanies scary things.
It accompanies jump scares in most cases.
Eerie music lingers. For me, it's the Unsolved Mysteries theme I played for the other night. That theme, man, whew, I hear it now and it still creeps me. The X-Files theme, like that's iconic in a eerie way. I love it.
Yeah, I definitely agree that the eerie music is because it just helps advance what's going on a little bit better. But
a lot of
scary music, you can tell what's coming. When it starts building like that, there's going to be a jump scare. It's going to throw a jump scare at you.
Which is why I'm kind of an advocate for if your movie can stand on two legs without that, then you're good to go. Yeah. Which is a lot of film people. At least I've heard this is that they're sort of your film purists who want to say music doesn't belong in your movie, and so if there is music in the film, it has to be in the environment,
right?
A radio playing or whatever. And so when people are really clever about that, there's something.
See, I wouldn't agree with those movie.
No, and I disagree.
I think that music, when used correctly, can really.
It needs to be used judiciously. Some of the worst committers of that sin are hero action movies, and or in our most recent cases, it'd be all the Marvel films. They just totally abuse the hero's action theme and all that sort of thing. And then horror movies with the jump scares.
Mm-hmm. I'm trying to think if there's any other ones that... Have you seen?
And maybe to a large extent even romantic comedies.
We don't need to talk about those ever. We will never have a podcast about romantic comedies ever. We probably will.
That would be fun.
Have you seen Everest? Oh, we would crap on so many movies. I think.
I think our opinions would. I think you would hate them a lot more than
Oh,
I
I bet that I hate them a lot more than most people.
We should watch like You've Got Mail. That would be great. That's a classic romantic comedy.
Nope. Nope.
Your reaction is priceless.
Going back to it, have you seen Hellraiser?
Yes, I like Hellraiser.
I've only seen bits and pieces of that.
Oh, we should watch that one.
Is it worth watching all with her? Okay.
Because it's a weird movie. I just like how strange it is.
Yeah.
Because you think
the bits and pieces that I've got of it's weird. It looks weird. Yeah.
Well, and it showed up in Cabin in the Woods as a sort of a little Easter egg, which I really like. Hellraiser is this sort of weird mix of sci-fi meets like I don't know, interdimensional, sort of like the Dimension X kind of stuff, where there's this universe of evil, creepy, crazy things. But that's a good movie. We should totally watch that.
Kind of going off that, the kind of sci-fi element. Have you seen or other dimension kind of element? Have you seen The Thing, the original?
Yeah.
John Carpenter movie?
Oh, I don't know. Is that the one in the Antarctic or whatever?
Yeah.
Yeah, totally like that.
That's a very good one as well. There's some other ones.
Well, I'm thinking The Mist, Stephen King's story.
Never seen it.
You haven't seen that?
Nope.
There's some moments in that movie that will just make you mad at the writers. Not because they're bad, because you're just like, that was a cheap way to end the movie. But the overall creepiness, what Stephen King seems to have, at least it seems to me, the Dimension X quality, where there's this world where there's just bizarre animals, creatures,
right,
whatever, that come out of it, and sort of the same world that maybe Ghostbusters exists in, where there's this realm that can be opened up to, and everything that comes out of it is super bizarre. Yeah, or they're just everything that lives there is super strange.
Yeah.
And I like that quality. Anyway, The Mist is a really good movie to get that, because the creatures that come out of this portal that gets created are they're not out to get you. They're just things that are alive and doing things that are alive. Right. Things like eat each other, even the people. But it's creepy because they don't live anywhere but in the mist, so you're afraid of the mist. It's sort of like what The Happening could have been.
Okay, don't bring that up. We don't need to talk about. Oh my god. Speaking of bad M. Night Shyamalan movies. Anyway, well, I guess this is somewhere where our audience, if anybody's actually listening, can help us out, and if they've seen classic horror movies and want to write down in the comments which ones we should watch and which ones we shouldn't, that'd be great. Either on
I'd be interested in more things with the sort of a Dimension X quality, something that's got it's not just paranormal. It goes even a step beyond that, like sort of some of the movies we've talked about. I'd be interested in more of those if you know of any.
Yeah. So leave us a comment and let us know what we should, and if there's some really bad ones out there that we should stay away from at all costs, like Ernest Scared Stupid. Then
no. You say that now, sir. You will come to love this film.
I doubt it.
I promise.
I guess we should just go ahead and wrap this up.
All right.
We want to thank everybody for listening, and if you want to talk to us at all, we both have Twitter accounts.
I'm at Greg Crafted, GregCrafted.
And I'm at Jordan's Guide, which is the Twitter for my website, which is jordansmovieguide.com. You can check that out. I do movie reviews, both new movies and classics and DVDs and all that good stuff. And I do top 10 lists every week. This week I did top 10 Matt Damon movies for The Martian, so you can check that out. You can also email us if you have questions or suggestions or anything at all. It's jordansmovieguide@gmail.com. I think that's it. So thanks everybody for listening, and I hope you enjoyed it. You can find last week's episode, like I said earlier, on YouTube or SoundCloud, and go ahead and download this one for us. We appreciate it.
See you later.